Now, friendly reminder for those of you who are not familiar, client success is way more than just content. We are actually a customer success management solution. So we help our customers manage their customers from new to renew, that entire post initial sales lifecycle. Everything from how you manage your customers through the orchestration of onboarding and kickoff, through that adoption stage, through renewals, growth, and advocacy. So everything you need to manage your customers is available in one simple and powerful solution. So if you're not familiar with us and would like to learn a little bit more, please head over to clientsuccess.com, request a demo. Someone from our wonderful sales team will be happy to connect with you, walk you through the solution, show you what it offers. If you don't have anything in place today, now is a great time to consider a solution. If you have something and it's not meeting your needs, also please check us out. If you just want to learn more about it and not go through a sales process, I'm also happy to share my thoughts. Me and my team use client success all day, every day to orchestrate our customer success programs. We're happy to share those insights with you. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out to someone. Let us know. We'd be happy to help. Now, on to why you're all here. Session 4. So as I mentioned earlier, my name is Christy Faltruso. I am currently the Chief Customer Officer at Client Success. So I manage our entire post-initial sales organization, that's success, support, and services. And I'm going to be your host for today. Like I mentioned, this is session 4 in a 4-part series. So today is the last one until we reconvene in May. So we're coming up with all new content ideas. We'll be excited to get that kicked off. So please watch out in your inboxes for some new promotional content around what content we'll be covering in our second bootcamp series for the year. So without further ado, today's topic, very fitting if you've kind of followed along with this series, but today talks about designing a content strategy to help your customers succeed with your solution. So I will tell you, I spent, for those of you who don't know this about my background, I spent the first decade of my professional career, which I call like Act 1, in marketing. And with a very heavy emphasis in search engine optimization, which, as you can imagine, relied very heavily on content. So for my entire professional career, I have known that content is king. Content is literally the most important thing for businesses, for brands, for companies, for each of you who are building your own personal brands, right? Content is everything. And so today we're going to focus on how do we design a content strategy that in this SaaS universe that most of us are operating in, how is it going to help our customers get more from our solutions? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to dive right in. In fact, let's get started. So I love to start with just some quotes here, because when I think about the importance of content, I know that I'm not the only one that believes that there is real value. And I don't mean value to the consumer, but business impact that can be generated as a result of content. So I love validation. I'm a words of affirmation person. I need head pats. So quotes for me sometimes do that. So in this case, there was 3 things that I was like, yes, 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 as I was reading through this and I was getting ready for the content for today. But the first one is content builds relationships, and relationships are built on trust, and trust drives revenue. And I was like, wow, what a beautifully articulated statement that really takes it from the beginning of what we're doing, that content creation, through the business impact it's going to have for our organizations, right? We build the content, it's going to foster relationships that builds trust and credibility, which is part of the trust equation. If you guys are not familiar, go look that up, but that will inevitably drive revenue. So I loved that. The second one, content isn't king, it's the kingdom. It is everything. And so when I led this and said content is king, and I've known that forever, when I saw this, I was like, whoa, okay, you're right. Content is bigger, right? It's the kingdom. And so I just love that. I thought that was super powerful. And the next one was great content is the greatest sales tool in the world. And think about it, right? How many of our marketing organizations are so heavily dependent on great content that feeds the pipeline? I mean, let's be honest here. We do these boot camps, and while I personally get the satisfaction of educating and sharing with the customer success community, these boot camps are probably one of the biggest pipeline drivers for client success, right? We get so many people that register for them. So when we think about the power and impact content can have, it is true. And I'm sure if you talk to your marketing or your sales counterparts or anybody, they're going to validate that for you. So that's why it is so critical that even as customer success professionals, we are thinking about how content is not only going to help our businesses, but more importantly, help our customers. Now, I like validation. I mentioned this, right? So I had come across some amazing statistics and I thought, wow, okay, some of these were really interesting and I had to share. So the first one here is, according to a survey by HubSpot, 94% of consumers say that they would be more loyal to a brand that offers complete transparency, including thorough educational content. Think about that, right? They emphasize loyal to a brand that offers complete transparency, including thorough educational content. I loved that because when I think loyal, I think retention, right? If you're loyal, you're sticking with me. So as customer success professionals, if we can see here that consumers want content that is going to help educate, enable them, and as a result of that effort, it will help drive retention. Yes, sign me up all day, right? Easy tactic for us. The second one here is Salesforce. Salesforce reports that 86% of buyers are willing to pay more for great customer experience, and educational content plays a significant role in providing that experience. So think about that. You've got organizations who are willing to pay more if they're having a great experience and the content supports that experience. That to me was another one, right? Because now we're not even talking about loyalty, which to me resonated with retention. Now you're telling me that someone's going to pay me more if we've got great content. Well, isn't that what we're all here for, right? We're all here. We're all in business. We're trying to make more money for our organizations. That to me was a no-brainer. And the last one that I have to share with you today was by Microsoft. So according to the research by Microsoft, 90% of consumers expect a brand or organization to offer a self-service customer support portal, and high-quality content is essential for creating such portals. So I thought this was really interesting because we talked about loyalty, we talked about even revenue, but now it's like part of this expectation. And so I left with this because it goes so far beyond the first two. Yes, those are the business impacts we hope to drive here, but to be able to say like, okay, our content strategy needs to be part of this because our customers expect it, right? It's got to be part of our brand offering. It cannot just be, we've got this really great technology, because anybody who is everybody who's ever worked at a SaaS company, I know for certain that your customers don't just magically know what to do with your product. Right. Maybe if you're Calendly, maybe. And I always talk about that because I think it's super easy and beautiful to use. But for the rest of us that aren't Calendly and our solutions come with levels of complexity, that content really helps to support our customers' adoption, right? Their change orchestration, all the things that are really critical to help them achieve their goals and get value from the partnership. So I wanted to lead off with these because I think it's so, so important for us to understand the impacts that these initiatives can have and why it is so critical. And I thought this one would actually really nicely fit into the other sessions that we covered in this series, right? We talked about scale, we talked about, changing the roles of CSMs, how we use data. And I think all of those things kind of combined to lead us to this idea that in order to achieve those things, we actually need to be creating more and better content. So I want to talk about how content can actually change your business results, because I think it's easy for a lot of us to say like, yes, we want to create more content, but we know, especially in customer success where no one wants to give us extra dollars, right? When we can justify the value and the impact of our efforts, it goes a long way. So when I want to communicate with you all on the importance of content, I think I want you all to take away that you can go back to your organizations and help understand the direct correlation between content creation and business impact. So the first one that I wanted to hit on was education and onboarding, right? This should be probably one of, if not the most obvious place that we could be creating new content, right? We need to educate and enable our customers on our product or our services, and help them understand it, not only the features and the benefits, but how to use it effectively to achieve their goals, right? So this is where I always say to my customers, like, come in clear on what you want to do and allow me to help you understand how to do it. And so this is where that education and onboarding is so critical, but think about all the content that we can be creating to effectively not only support our customers, but to scale that as well. Now, even in a one-to-one relationship where you might have every customer going through their own specific onboarding experience with either an onboarding manager, or maybe your CSM drives that, or you've got implementation depending on its complexities, you have maybe resources dedicated to that. Well, think how much more effective those resources can be when they have supporting content, right? Whether it's content that you're creating and saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, before you show up for session one, have these things pre-reviewed, watch these videos, review this content, go through these exercises. Then when we come together, we're going to make it a working session, and then I'm going to have some other content that you can leverage to support that and reinforce it. That's powerful. So we want to think about how can we create more robust content to support education enablement. The next is problem solving and troubleshooting. I'm telling you guys, I shockingly had a conversation with a company this week, and we were just talking about their entire customer success organization. And one of the things they told me is that they don't have a knowledge base today. And I was kind of like, wow, okay, there's still companies out there that like have built out all of these teams, but like don't have some of the basics. I think more often what we see is that organizations start with like a foundational technical support team, and you're building the knowledge base out and you're building some of those resources. They didn't have that yet. And I thought, wow, okay, like if I was going to go create content today for your organization, I'm going to start there. So think about this. Customers want to help themselves, right? It's a fact. There is data on this. And so because they want to help themselves, we've got to create content so they can easily do that. Think about it through FAQs, troubleshooting guides, tutorials, your knowledge base. How do I content, which I love that, like prompted by that question, because so many people type that, like, how do I do XYZ? Great, have content that says, how do I do XYZ, right? Like just have easy content that's going to help facilitate that. Let customers help themselves. Continuous learning and upskilling content that is going to give like best practices, advanced usage, anything that's going to help them get more out of the product. This doesn't need to be just about your product. Think about this as even content that's created around industry knowledge and best practices. I often like to reference these boot camps, for example, right? I don't talk about client success really. Maybe I'll mention it here and there when it contextually makes sense when I'm trying to give examples of how I do something, but these are not client success webinars, right? These are industry webinars. This is the type of content that I would like to think is helping to upskill and to provide learning and guidance to my customers, but also the broader community. Then you've got community building and engagement content, right? You've got the ability of maybe you have either a Slack channel or you have a community platform. Feeding that and putting in content into there, or having your customers create content that they're interacting with, whether it's their shared experiences, their knowledge of the product, use cases, things like that. If you have those types of forums, whether you're seeding content or allowing content to be created organically, that's content. Then I think about the feedback loop and product improvement, right? Content can really serve as a channel for gathering feedback from customers, but think about closing the loop with those customers, creating content that helps them either understand what they could do today or what's coming in the future. Any of that kind of content is really helpful. And we can't think about content as like, oh, it's only articles or it's only videos or it's only this or it's only that. Anything that you're writing or producing that is helping educate, enable, communicate with your customers and your community, that's all content. And the last is its impact on retention and renewals. Let me just tell you, if you can help your customers understand how to use your product, if they can solve their own problems, if you're committed to upskilling them and teaching them, if you're facilitating community, if you're collecting feedback and closing the loop, inevitably you should be driving better retention. And so, this is definitely an outcome we should all be striving for, and content is one pathway to help us get there. So I share this because I think it's important for you to understand that we are not creating content for the sake of creating content. Nobody has time for that. But if we create the right content and deliver it through the right channels, it should be driving these types of outcomes for our customers. And that's really what we're striving for. So it's not just enough to go and create content because it's what you feel like talking about today or what you think people would like to hear. I will tell you, one of the things that I try to avoid at all costs is making assumptions, because I never want to assume that I know better than anybody else about what they want. And so it is going to be a big part of this is going to be you figuring out what content do we as an organization need today? Now, you're going to be able to come up with a laundry list. I promise you, there will be no shortage of content ideas that you'll come up with once you start this process. But you're going to need to narrow that down, because we all know, unless you've got a team of people who are just designed to creating content, you're probably going to be asking for everyone to help contribute to this strategy, which means everyone's got other stuff on their plate. So you're going to have to figure out, where do we want to start and what do we want to prioritize? But knowing where to start is going to be step one. Now, I want you to try to think about, well, what is the content that our customers need? Now, this is something that I think we spent a lot of time doing at Client Success, because I didn't want to just create the content that I was excited about creating, because that would be easy. I love talking about customer success stuff, and I know it's top of mind for me, but that doesn't mean that that is the content that my customers need and want. So I need to go figure out, okay, well, what is that content? So I want to just give you some examples. This is outside of actually just interviewing customers, because that's always a big part of my process. Always, if I'm designing anything for my customers, I like to speak with them. So I'm saying like that should be a given. If you're not getting it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, there are other channels, but I'd always recommend having conversations with your customers first. That's always going to be the best place to find out what they need and what they want. So I'm going to say, after you've done that, or maybe you're going to do these first and then go to them to validate it. That's okay too. But please do speak to your customers. After you do that, few things you want to figure out, right? You need to define who your audience is. Who am I creating this content for? At Client Success, when we were going through this process, I had to think about, am I creating content for my end users? Am I creating content for admins? Am I creating content for leaders? Am I creating contents for executives? Who is my audience? Because not only does it change the type of content that we create, it might also change the format, the channel, the mechanisms that we use to produce. So I really need to get tight on, for all intents and purposes, who is consuming this content, and why was I creating this content for them, right? What was the specific outcome there? So I would always say, start with figuring out who. The next one is map your content to the journey, right? Obviously, most of us, if you're in a SaaS organization, you may have a customer journey, I don't mean that it has to be like a fully baked everything from like your marketing through retention or advocacy. I mean, you probably have even a loose framework of how you march your customers from onboarding through renewal. We'll just stay within the confines of just that. You have to be able to map content to the journey. Now, this is really important because it's going to help you figure out, where are there gaps in what you have today, and where do we want to spend more time educating and enabling and kind of coaching up our customers. And again, then thinking through the lens of like, okay, at this stage, how would I want to communicate or educate my admins or my executives or my end users, right? So I love mapping that exercise because it'll help me figure out where there's great content I create in onboarding. What's the type of content I want to create during kind of that middle period of the journey? What's the type of content that would help facilitate really great business reviews or those types of conversations? What is the content that I need to have created if we're going to have roadmap discussions or create a CAB or any of those things, right? So whether it's going through onboarding or making your way all the way through, points of advocacy, you've got to figure out what is the right content that we've got to create to support those various stages. And again, this goes back to like, we're going to talk about all the different types of content we create, but if you continuously map it to the journey, it'll really help you hone in and figure out what's the type of content. The next is identifying content gaps. This to me, I thought would be easier, right? Because I just thought like, it would just come to me. Like it would be so obvious, all of the content gaps. But this one was actually a little trickier because when you're looking at all of your content, you feel like, oh my gosh, I have so much content and it's so great and it's so robust. And you're probably sitting there patting yourselves on the back. So for me, what I tried to figure out is like, okay, we got to dig into this and figure out like, what are we missing? And then start to create lists of that. Now, I will say around certain areas, it was more obvious than others. But when I was thinking about like our knowledge base and things like that, I'd go through and I'd feel like, wow, okay, we have everything. But then when you look at like support tickets and things like that, I'm like, oh, okay, they're submitting a support ticket. Either they can't find the content or it's missing something. So really start to figure out, where are we missing content? And I would tell you, if you were a leader going through this exercise, do not do this alone. Speak to your CSMs, go speak to support, speak to marketing, speak to product, go leverage all of your rich relationships across the organization and figure out where everyone believes that there are gaps in your content today. Next is keyword research. So again, this is where I got to like brush up on my marketing skills from act one of my career and do some keyword research. And I got to tell you, this was probably like my most fun because I love going into data. So first thing I did is I went and pulled all of the data from like my knowledge base. Like, what are the top performing pages? What were the types of searches people were conducting in our search in our knowledge base? Then I went to like our website and kind of did the same exercise. Like, what types of content were people searching for when they went to our site? What content resonated really well? Where were people finding the content, whether it was organic, so was it coming from search or was it coming from our website? Things like that. I went through tickets, support tickets, right? Are there anything thematically there? I looked at conversations that my CSMs were tagging their engagements with their customers around. So I started to see themes of what was popping up based off of how our customers were engaging, not only with our people, but now really with the resources that they had at their disposal today. And then lastly, there's always going to be great content to create around industry trends. And I will tell you, most of your customers are partnering with you because they see value in you helping guide them beyond the use of your solution. So if you're not producing content that is technology agnostic and really focuses on educating your customers about what's happening in the market and their industry, what trends you're seeing, how they should be thinking about it, how to navigate these things in their business, then I think you're really doing yourselves a disservice because your customers are relying on you to bring that to the forefront. If you're a CSM or you've ever been a CSM in your life, you've met with a customer, I am sure you've had this conversation where your customer has said, well, what is so-and-so doing? Or what are your other customers doing? Or what are they focusing on? What's important to them, right? These are things that they're asking because they want to know that they're doing the right things, that they're focused on the right things. And this sometimes has nothing to do with your technology. It's just as a business operating model, they want to make sure like, wow, okay, am I on to something? Am I on the right track? Right? They're looking for that validation. So these were just some ways that I went and started to figure out where was the content that I needed to create? What are the holes it was going to plug? So again, defining your audience. So who are you creating the content for? Map out your customer journey and map the content to it. Identify any content gaps that exist today, but make sure you're doing so in collaboration with all of your cross-functional peers. Use the data that you have today. So all that keyword research that you can go and dig into all your tools and systems, and then industry trends. So again, making sure that you're bringing more to the table than just information about your product. So then we'll talk a few minutes about content type. I will tell you, if you're only writing content, you're doing it wrong. Especially in today's day and age where people want content the way they want it, where they want it. They want it embedded, they want it in pages, they want it long form, short form, written, screenshots, step-by-step guides. They want it all the way they want it. And I gotta tell you, like, this was probably the trickiest part because I would gladly create every piece of content in all of these forms to give it to everybody and make it so that they're consuming it the way they want. Obviously, day one, that's not possible. So things that I had to consider is long form video content, right? This is going to be more of these types of webinars, things like that, where we're doing like deep dive trainings, things that will live in perpetuity on our website that our customers can go back to and reference and resource in the future. So what information did I think would be most appropriate via long form video content? The next one is short form video content. I don't know about you guys, but I have a teenager who spends, I think, most of their free time scrolling through TikTok. And as an adult now, I've found myself scrolling through TikTok. And what I found is that this short form video content actually does perform well. Even when I'm trying to learn something, I bought a new camera and I was trying to figure out like how to use all the buttons because I have no idea. And I literally went and like did a search on TikTok and I found people doing these short form explainer videos. And in like 2-3 minute clips, I was a pro on my camera. So think about the value of having the different types of content because again, not everyone can really consume or learn the same way. And there's different content that really can be delivered through these different channels. So again, just because it's video, you have to think like long form, short form. Loom videos are a great example of that. My team cranks out Loom videos. I'm always so impressed, but anytime a customer has a question, more often than not, they reply in a Loom than they do in written text because it's easier to just walk somebody through something and explain it and send a little video clip. My customers often love that because they're like, oh, great. In like 2 seconds, I watched this thing and it's super clear to me, right? Some people are visual learners. And so that really helps. The next thing is through Q&A content. I love this question answer because it also really resonates with folks that type out questions when they're searching. Again, giving you an example just from me, how I do things. I go to Google and I like type in exactly what my question is, and I rely on Google being smart enough to like surface up the information. I know confidently that I am not the only person out there that does that. And so if you are creating Q&A content that is aligned with how people are searching based on the questions that they're asking, you're going to be able to have that content really surface to the top. And people are super impressed when they type in a question and then you have the exact piece of information that answers that question. So when you think about content, right, are there things that you can create in a question answer? And from there, right, it could be it could be short written content. It could be an explainer page. It could be short form video content, right? Again, just different, but like what type of content really fits in that format? The next is article content. Guys, we cannot move away from the fact that there is still value in like rich content. And this could be long written articles, like articles that were like 800 to 1200 words, right? Like really rich content, because some things can't be explained in 2 seconds, and some things can really perform well in written content. Not everything needs to be a video these days. So what can we create that really is going to perform well in an article? Then you've got your knowledge base. This I love because this should be explanatory. This is going to have a combination of direction and lists and visual screenshots, maybe video embedded as well. Maybe it's a combination of all of these things. So how you surface content in your knowledge base is going to look very different than content that you're creating in these other channels. If you have a community, creating content for your community is also going to be very different, because now you're looking for content that is going to drive engagement, right? You're going to be asking questions and prompting discussion. So what you write there might be shorter, but it's going to prompt a call to action, right? Because in community, that's what we want. We want engagement. We want conversation to take place. So thinking about what content you see in your community is going to look very different than content that you're putting in all these other channels. And then my last example here is like a newsletter, right? Think about this as like a feeder. What are bite-sized headline and really kind of intro content pieces that you feel like we want to distribute at mass? And we want everyone to basically have this buffet of content in front of them that we think is relevant and allow them to kind of choose their own adventure, right? They're going to click into the things that are going to be most useful or most interesting to them. And again, the content you see there, maybe it lives in some of these other channels, maybe it's little bits and pieces of all of this, but that content is going to be sent through this mechanism of a newsletter. Now, again, these are not the only different content types you can be thinking about. In fact, I'm sure all of you could probably rattle off a whole bunch more. But when I was thinking about the content that I wanted to create here at Client Success, this is how I was bucketing it. So I picked these 7. Now, you guys might come up with 10 or 12 or say only 3 of these are relevant. But whatever you decide from here, this is going to help you start to take the list of content that you created. When I said, come up with that list, what content do we need to create? And now start to drop that into these little buckets. That helped me to figure out, okay, great. If I'm working on video content, short form video content, I got to tackle these 15 things. Now it's short form, right? Again, Loom, it could be I create a Zoom and cut up these pieces. I could be using other software as well. But how do you need to and want to create this content for these different channels? So this is, again, me just laying out for you the process that I went through, but it really helped me to figure out where and how I was going to organize that content. This also really started to help me think about where this content would live. Like our long form content might go on our YouTube channel. Our short form content might be embedded. Q&A content might live off our knowledge base, and article content might live on our blog, right? So the more I got clarity around not only what content I wanted to create, but how it would be created, also helped me figure out sort of what would be our kind of preceding platform and sharing mechanism for all of this. So just in terms of like the process that I went through, obviously step 1 was determine what content was needed. This is where you're going to start. So as I mentioned, you're going to start by asking your customers. Again, if you are not engaging with your customers and having those conversations around what they need and what they want, you're really you might miss the mark, quite honestly. The other places of data are really helpful, but I have never found anything more useful than asking my customers directly. Even if you don't want to go and interview all of your customers, which I think as a leader is a missed opportunity to have a conversation, but you can just send a survey, right? Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we're on this process, this mission to create you the best and most robust content in the industry. Help us determine what we should be focusing on, and ask their opinion, right? Give them some multi-select options, give them some drop downs, some open text boxes. Let them share with you what they want. Again, I highly recommend the interviews, although it doesn't scale. Speak to some of them. Next, pull that data from your knowledge base. When I just did an export of every single page in our knowledge base. And then I did the analytics against it to see where my customers were spending the most time. It was amazing because, quite frankly, a lot of my customers were going to the knowledge base, but weren't even looking for product related content. They were looking for more of the content that actually resides in things like these boot camps, right? The like, how do I create a customer journey? How do I, create a series of playbooks, things like that, which aren't product specific to client success. It's more like industry best practice content. So to me, that was really interesting because one, I thought, well, I thought we did have that content. So are they not finding it? Or when they are searching, are they finding it? Are they landing on the right pages? Then it also helped me realize, like, could we be spending more time educating and enabling our customers? Are we not doing enough in that regard? So I think when you pull that data, it might be really eye-opening for you all. The next is the traffic on your website. As I mentioned, this was a really fun exercise because I got to see what of our content was really top performing and start to really analyze the analytics behind it. So I got to see things like, where is this audience coming from? How long are they consuming that content, right? Are they reading it all the way through? Are they landing somewhere and then clicking off? So maybe that's not what they thought it would be. All of that data became really interesting in understanding how people were interacting with our content and what content performed really well and what didn't. The next thing I did is I looked at support tickets. This was also, again, a really interesting and eye-opening exercise for me, especially as a leader, because we assume that people are sending in support tickets because they've got questions about the product. And it was really interesting for me to actually unpack that and see that a lot of our customers were going to support and asking non-product related questions, but more like around like best practices or what do we recommend to do XYZ, which again, to me, that felt like more like customer success stuff and less support stuff. So it also allows me to kind of coach and enable the team and say to our CSMs, hey guys, we actually need to be spending more time, or at least ensure that our customers have insight into X or Y, because that's really what they're looking for here. We don't want our customers going to support for strategy. We want them going to our CSMs for strategy and going to our support team for like product stuff. So again, like, want to make sure that my customers are going to the right places to get the right stuff. And the last is like being able to talk to the teams. So my CSMs, definitely, I always say, more knowledgeable than I am all the time. They're the ones speaking with my customers. They know what their customers are having questions about, where they're struggling, what would benefit them, what types of resources we should be packaging together. Oftentimes when I create content, it's only because my team is telling me, hey, it would be really great if we had X, or if we built out this additional onboarding resource, or if we did this. I think that I'm smart. I think I get it sometimes, and I can probably be proactive in creating some of that, but my team is definitely always sharing what they think that we need to create as well. And that's a wonderful resource. AEs and marketing also, because AEs, they're having conversations with prospects, and whether those prospects become customers or do not, they have really rich insights into why their customers are even engaging in the first place and what some of their challenges were. Well, if I can create content for that to help our customers once they become customers, or even things that can be repurposed for our pipeline of prospects, all a ton of value there. So really go deep on this and figure out what content you need. Next, you're going to have to create a plan and execute it. So determine what channel is best for each piece of content. Like I said, I created those 7 buckets across in an Excel spreadsheet, and I took the list of content that I had, and I basically put a checkbox in the columns that were appropriate. So I had content ideas in the column. I had my content kind of channels or types at the top, and then I kind of checked off where I had to have that. So that was one piece of that was one exercise that I went through that I thought was really helpful. Next, you're going to have to assign an owner. So who's best equipped to lead or produce that content? Again, if you have an army of content producers, if you have a content team, God bless. That's great. I'm so happy that you have those resources. Most of us do not. And so in this case, we've got to get everyone's buy-in to help us produce that content. Now, I don't want anybody here to think that content production should be marketing exclusively, because by no means should it. In fact, when it comes down to product stuff or industry best practices, knowledges, things like that, your team, your CSMs, your support, your services, your integrators, your product teams, all these other teams across your business probably would be able to produce better content than marketing. So you need to be thinking about that. Next is create a V1, and don't worry about it being perfect. I can tell you, I have spent so much time trying to perfect, that's what I was looking for, perfect things. So whether it's, initiatives I'm trying to roll out, or even preparing decks like this, right? How many times have you guys spotted a typo or something? I try my best. And so what I've come to realize is that, like, Getting it done and making sure that it's good is better than it being perfect. We will be able to go back and enhance content and make it better, make it more useful, and optimize it over time, which is gonna be part of part 3 here. So just worry about getting something produced and getting it out there. And then lastly, you've got to track the performance. If you are not measuring the impact of your content, and I don't mean the leading indicators, I also mean the lagging indicators, and we're going to talk about that momentarily. So create your plan and execute against it. And third, wash, rinse, and repeat. Content is never a one and done motion. You don't create the content and then go, that was great, I created it, it's done. You're always going to be creating new content. What I'm telling you guys today is like, yes, this is how we can go back and like fill the void because we didn't create all this content this whole time. But now we got to embed this into our process ongoing. We've always got to be creating new content. The next is you're going to optimize content. So once you have content created, you're going to go back to it. You're going to find out what's performing really well, what's not, what's missing. You're going to get feedback from your customers, from your team, right? Oh, this is great, but it's missing X. Or could we go and explain this a little bit further? Go back to your content. And this is where tracking its performance and measuring the impact is going to be so critical, because you're going to be able to use the performance data to then go back and say, here's the other things that we need to do. Lastly, test content in various forms, right? Everyone has a different learning style. I mentioned this, and I'm sure all of us on this webinar today probably learn very differently. Some of us are going to want video content. I personally love video content. I want to go watch something, pause it, rewind it, pause it, rewind it, pause it, do it alongside. That's my learning style. I'm visual. I'm audible. Like I need to hear somebody explaining it to me. I want to watch them. That's how I learn best. I want to be able to do it independently too, at my own pace. Everyone's different. Test different content. So if you're creating a piece of content and you're doing long form video, chop it up and take that same piece of video and make 5 little short form videos out of it. Make little clips and see what performs better. Do people consume the whole long video, or do you find that it's actually more productive to have these clips because people are watching the clips in completion and making it through 5 small clips as opposed to trying to get through like an hour-long video? So try to figure out what works, test different content styles there. So I'm going to give you guys some examples of just content that should be no-brainers for you. And I'm going to give you 3 different kind of like buckets of content and how I thought about this. We are in the process of creating a ton of new content here at Client Success. We are redoing our whole knowledge base. We're doing a lot of stuff. And so one of the areas that I'm working to build out on, last year, I created this like really robust onboarding portal using Google Sites, which there is a bootcamp on that and creating that. But now we want to go and make it even better. I've gotten so much great feedback from customers who are like, this is awesome having everything in one place, but I know it could be better. So things that I'm considering, I'm going to create long form and short form video content to help accelerate the onboarding process. Think training videos, explainer videos, little short form, those like how do I videos. I want to have a whole repository of those. We're going to produce more guides and workbooks. So we've created basically like workbook style material and assets for our customers that say, here's the different parts of our platform that can be configured. And here's examples of how others or we have gone and used these parts of the product. So we give people those examples to build off of. Those are really helpful. We want to create more of those. This is going to help our customers connect more to their business objectives and, more importantly, get to those outcomes. Documenting success stories. So what I want to do is have success stories, not these big ones that talk about like how I moved my business 800 points and I'm amazing. I want little ones like, here's a customer who created this playbook, and as a result, their team is doing X. Right? These small stories, just because I want other customers to know what's possible. And I want to be able to embed that content along the material that we're training them on. So I want to give them the why, like, why is this important? Why do you want to do this as part of your business? And why and how are we going to do it in the platform? But then as a result of that, connect those 2 dots by saying, here's the success other customers have had with this specific thing designed this specific way, to help them just get a sense of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's going to connect dots for them differently. So that's the type of content I want to create. Design more templates. For our customers, one of the things that I notice is if you give people a blank sheet of paper, they will stare at it for hours. Think about that, right? Someone gives you an assignment. You don't know where to start sometimes. I want to remove that for my customers and just say, here's a template, right? Like, let's modify it, let's edit it, let's change it, let's go from here, because seeing something that helps with ideation is going to help them get started, it's going to help them move faster. So again, these are just examples of types of content that you might want to create for your onboarding experience. This is stuff that I plan on doing with our team. The next thing is your knowledge base. So first one seems obvious, but not all companies are doing this today, but create new pages for your product releases. There are some companies that I see that nail this every time. Every time they have a new product release, they say like product release, date, here's the theme of what we released, and then all of the stuff in there, and it links off to videos and it links off to other articles. And I'm like, oh, that's gorgeous. Create new pages. You've got new product going out. You need to be training and enabling your customers on it. And if it's rolling out in between when your team is scheduled to meet with customers or before you've got a webinar to train them on, create the content so they can consume it. I go back to these how do I video, like short form video things, because people are always asking it. If you look at YouTube, their keyword search, if you go to Google and get their keyword search, people are always looking for this how do I do these things content. We are wired that way, to ask questions and then assume that content will answer it for us. So I really love this idea of creating that type of content in our knowledge base. Adding use case workflows linked to instructional pages. I think it's one thing to tell somebody how to do something, but it really, I think, bridges the gap for them when they can understand why they're doing this and the impact of doing it. So I want to be able to connect dots better in our content and not just like talk to people about the product, but more say, here's how you do that very specific thing, and here's why that's important, and here's what could happen if you do it. Creating short form video, long screenshots, and written text. This just goes back to everyone learns differently. On all of our knowledge base articles, we want to create Loom content that goes alongside of it. If someone wants to watch a video, great. If someone wants to read it and follow along with screenshots, great, that's there. I want to start to build out more robust content that gives people what they want and how they want it. Last, take the support tickets and start to prepare like a Q&A section, most commonly asked questions. What I see a lot of in our support ticket data is that a lot of our customers will come back with the same types of questions, maybe, different nuances, but this is great. If we see that, some of our customers are asking the same questions, I guarantee myself that other customers have similar questions. So I want to use that to feed like a robust Q&A, because again, that's something that kind of dovetails off of this, like, how do I, but have that Q&A available so that, again, it's answering questions in that short form. So these are types of things that I want to create for the knowledge base. Now, when I think about webinar content, one of the things that I think we've done really well at Client Success is create really great webinar content. So first thing that we're thinking about is training videos. So how many times have you had to train and then retrain again customers because somebody has come and somebody has go and you've got a new leader or they've got new hires or great. I just want to have training videos that are created, and maybe we do this like once a month or once a quarter. We do like a series of trainings. Maybe it's 3 days. Come for those 3 days, sign up in advance. If you've got new people who haven't been trained and enabled, they can attend it live, then record it. Now, the reason why I would say do this every quarter is because hopefully, like many of us, our technology is evolving. It is changing. New things are coming out. New things are being put into the pasture, right? Like things that we don't use anymore. So making sure that also it looks right. It looks like your product does today. So that's kind of why I'm thinking about doing this quarterly, allow people to opt in to attend live or have that on demand. They can go and reference it. Product specific tutorials. How do I get value from X by doing Y? Right? Here's what I'm trying to do. So like use case based training. So for customers who are trying to optimize their renewal process in client success, right? Things like that, where it's really diving into specific parts of the product with specific workflows and use cases. Workshops. This is something we're kicking off this quarter. Our first one will be next month, but do workshops that are hands-on with our customers that are tackling industry challenges or common situations. Again, almost product agnostic, because this goes back into how do we continue to educate our customers on things that are relevant to them outside of our platform. Live office hours that can be recorded and shared on demand. This isn't support office hours where that might be specific and you're in someone's, instance of your product or things like that. This is more conversation about how to do certain things with the product, value of certain things, workflows, Things that are more generic that can be shared out that aren't specific to anyone's business. They don't really show anyone's proprietary data, things like that. And lastly is like, how do we orchestrate more panel discussions with customers to share ideas and thoughts on popular topics? I love the idea of bringing customers together to share what they're doing at scale. So again, these are just some of the ideas that we have for new content that we're focused on specifically. And this is fed from all of the research that we had done about what is the content that we feel is a gap today that's needed. So we are going to get to Q&A, guys. I only got a slide or two left, so don't worry. Last thing is, I mentioned you have to track the performance of your content. So I want to be very clear. We should be looking at leading indicators, but we need to be focused on lagging indicators. So when I think about leading for content, think traffic, think visits, page views, clicks, time on site, how long they've watched the video for, right? Unique visitors, plays, download, replays, attendees, registration. Those are all leading indicators, but we are creating content to drive business outcomes. So if these are the metrics that you are reporting on to leadership, don't. These do not matter. These are leading. Yes, this is helpful, but this isn't what we're driving for, right? Our content has specific objectives. I'm creating content because I want to deepen adoption. I want to increase the number of users. I want to increase consumption. I want to increase engagement. I want my customers getting more value from our product. I want to increase retention for the business, drive more upsell, drive more expansion, drive more cross-sell. I want to improve our NPS, our CSAT, our CES, all of those things. Those are more of your lagging indicators. So when you're creating this content, that's great. I'm excited for you to embark on this journey, but please make sure that you are measuring the impact very carefully, right? There's the leading indicators and lagging indicators. Now, obviously, you're going to say, okay, but attribution is hard, Christy. I get that. I get it. I get it. But we also know that if you've got content out there that your customers are consuming, keep track of that. And then start to see, okay, customers thematically, our customers that are engaging with our content, consuming this content, are they doing these lagging things? Are we seeing behavioral changes from customers who engage with our content versus those that don't? And finding themes and patterns like that is enough. You don't need to say they watched this video, they immediately went out and requested a quote and bought new product. It's going to be very difficult. So what we want to just start to see is like, what is the impact between customers who consume content and their behaviors at the end? So that's the last part of that. Things that I want you to just walk away here from. Everyone in your organization should be creating content. This is not a marketing job. So if you're like wanting to send this list of content over to your marketing team, shame on you. We should all be owning content creation. Next, content is going to help you and your team scale. I know that it takes a lot of time and you're like, Christy, none of us have time. I know that. I don't have time, but I create content every day. So you need to invest the time now, and I promise it will save you time later. Customers value content. The data proves that. I showed you a whole bunch of like stats and data points on this. I promise you, I found a website that I had a lot of those. I only showed you guys 3, but I promise you it's going to have impact on this. So you want to make sure that your customers are getting value from your content, and we want them to make sure that we are enabling them to help themselves also. Good content today is better than perfect content in 2 weeks. Get started. Do not worry about making sure that you've got every single thing that you'd want or every different type of content. Just produce content. Getting something out today will be more helpful than waiting weeks before you're doing something and think that it's perfect. Guess what? Even when you think it's perfect, it will still need revision. It will still need to be optimized. And then here's an idea. Incentivize for content creation. I know that sounds crazy. You're all like, Christy, we have no more money. Our budgets are this or that. Put it into your OKRs. Put it into different metrics, right? Give your team and say like, everybody on our team is creating 10 pieces of unique content every quarter, something like that, right? Or put spiffs behind it. Every piece of content is worth points. And then at the end of the quarter, whoever has the most points wins this pool of money. There are so many creative ways to incentivize it. And maybe it's not even dollars, right? Incentivize people, create a contest, send somebody a gift, send swag, have a leaderboard. There are ways to motivate folks to do this, but at the end of the day, we do need everyone in the business creating content. It is not just you. So we've got to work together and figure out how do we get folks to participate in the content creation. Okay, that said, I know I've only left 5 minutes for Q&A. I apologize. Always lots of content here, guys. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to take a deep breath because I've not been breathing, and I'm going to read through some of these questions, and we'll see what we can get to in 5 minutes. Okay, so the first one here is, what are your recommendations on working with a marketing team that prefers to own content, webinars, etc., from a branding and voice perspective? I think this is where collaboration comes in, right? I think that's fine. If your marketing team wants to do it, by all means. But you all should maybe say, you know what, we know the product best, or we know the industry best, or we know this, or allow us to tell you what content you should be creating, right? Be part of the ideation process. I think it's okay, right? Like nobody needs to own anything, right? Like we don't need to like reclaim this and be like, oh, we own this now because Christy said so. No, we want to just make sure that the right content is getting created. I almost don't even care where it's being originated from, as long as everyone gets to collaborate. Because maybe CS, you all review a piece of content and you're like, oh, this is good, but this is what would make it better, or this is actually what our customers need more of. So I would say, don't worry about that. Work in collaboration with them. Tell them that you want to be a part of the content creation or curation process, and offer your assistance, and sell why it would be beneficial to have you involved in the process. But I think it's okay if marketing really wants to make sure everything is beautiful and tied up with the right, voice and bow, let them have it. Second question here, at a small tech SaaS, where our platform, I guess SaaS company, where our platform is constantly evolving and our content can get out of date so quickly, any recommendations on how to manage this? Who should own updating? Okay, so if we're talking specific product stuff, here's my pro tip to everybody who's on this call. Check out a product called Scribe. It literally follows your like mouse as you're navigating a site, and it creates the screenshots and the content for you. 38 seconds to create an entirely new knowledge base article. Check it out. We've got a lot of cool use cases that we're working on it with. So that would be my recommendation. If you've got a product that's evolving very quickly, go check it out. Their product is amazing. Ask anybody who's used it. I sent the CEO, who is out on maternity leave right now, I sent her a long message about how Scribe has literally changed my life. So go check out Scribe. I already see people commenting that Scribe is amazing. They love Scribe. Go get Scribe. That is my big recommendation. I think there's a free version, so if you want to test it out and see how amazing it is, and then you're going to immediately go buy the team version. Another question here. Could you provide insights into how content can be utilized to gather valuable feedback from customers, or how organizations can leverage this feedback for improvement? How do you measure the success of your content strategy? Any KPIs? So I just showed all of the kind of leading and lagging indicators of how we would measure the content performance. I think in terms of how content can be utilized to gather valuable feedback from customers, I think honestly, surveys are great, interviewing your customers are great, but watching what happens as a result of them consuming your content is even better. I think that's the coolest thing ever, is like being able to watch behavior changes as a result of great content. Maybe you have less support tickets because you've got better content. Maybe we've got different conversations happening with our CSMs. Maybe we see more consumption of additional content. So I think that there's a lot of things that you can kind of gleam into from how your customers are consuming it. But as far as like the KPIs to look at, it's all the ones that I listed right there. Somebody said, making long and short form videos, how do you manage these? And when your product is continuously improving and changing, content can go stale very quickly. Again, if you're a product who's like literally, like if it's really significantly changing week to week, month to month, maybe short form video is best. Maybe it'll have a longer shelf life for you, low calorie effort in creating it, like Loom videos and things like that, where you can very easily go and re-record in the future. But I would definitely maybe rethink how much you're investing in all that content creation until maybe the product becomes a little bit more, I don't know, it's like stale isn't the right word, until your product isn't changing so quickly. I think early stage companies, probably you're innovating a lot more, so there's changing more frequently. So I would just kind of think about how much you want to invest up front if there is a lot of changes happening. One more question. Oh no, I can't. It's 2:00. I can't keep you guys any longer, but there are some really great questions in here. I will see again. I'm gonna try to see if I could take all the questions that came out that I didn't get to answer from all 4 sessions in this series, and see if I can maybe like put together like a Q&A doc or something. I will do my best to create that content for all of you guys. But I just wanted to say thank you all. Thank you for sticking with me this entire series. Thank you for staying with me till the end of session 4. in this series. I'm so grateful for all of you. I do put a lot of work into these. This is not my day job creating this content. This is a passion project for me that Dave Blake, our CEO, loves that I do for the community. I love doing it. So I'm just grateful for you all showing up for me, and hopefully you're getting value from all of this. So if you missed anything, all the content will be sent out. This video, as well as the deck from today, will be shared out. If you guys have questions, if you want to chat more about this or anything else that we've covered this series, ping me. Like, let's get back on a line. We could do a Q&A session just for the 4 sessions in the series where people could just show up and ask the questions that didn't get answered for any of the content we covered in these 4 episodes. Maybe we do that. We do like a Q&A recap. So open to all these ideas if anyone thinks that they would join and show up for that. Otherwise, guys, have a great rest of your week. Have a strong end of month. I won't talk to you before the quarter is over. So go have a strong kick butt quarter. And I will see you guys all in Q2 for our next bootcamp series. So thank you guys all so much. See you soon.